keeping you connected in Northeast Wisconsin. You're watching NBC26 News at 6.
Tonight on NBC26 News at 6, President Trump paves the way for a fight to win this battleground state, making a pair of stops in Wisconsin. Starting at Austin-Straubel International Airport for a town hall.
The president wants to connect with the voters here.
Then on to Marinette for the town's first ever visit from a sitting president.
With the help of everyone here today, this shipyard will continue to prosper.
A visit amid a pandemic. We have live team coverage with all the highlights right now on NBC26 News at 6. Good evening, I'm Nina Sperano. John Erickson is on assignment. He is part of our live team coverage of the presidential visit from Green Bay to Marinette. He has a live report from Ashwaubenon. We also have Juliana Falk at Marinette Marine, plus coverage from Ryan Curry, Rachel Hopmeyer, and Eric Crest. The president's trip to Wisconsin focused on two big stops, a town hall in Green Bay and a visit to Marinette. That's where we find our Juliana Falk live with more on the president's speech.
It was quite a crowd here at Fincantieri Marinette Marine. Hundreds of employees, their family members, and community members were here as President Trump spoke for about 25-30 minutes after touring the shipyard. He talked a lot about what's happening here in Wisconsin, particularly in northeast Wisconsin, after Marinette Marine was recently awarded a contract to build up to 10 U.S. Navy ships. Ships, Trump said, are very advanced and will help accomplish a big priority to boost national security and build the Navy. The deal also could be worth $5.5 billion and add 1,000 jobs. He said the nation should be proud of Wisconsin.
Through your sweat, skill, and devotion, the workers of this shipyard will forge the future of the United States Navy. You're going to be a very big part of the United States Navy, and there are other things coming. As you get set up with this is a lot to handle, but as you get set up, they're going to be spending a lot of money on the renovation of the yard and the expansion of the yard. We have other things coming.
This was certainly a big day for Marinette. It's believed to have been the first time a sitting president has visited the city. I'll have more from President Trump's speech tonight at 10. Live in Marinette, Juliana Falk, NBC26.
Juliana, thank you. Hours before Air Force One landed in northeast Wisconsin, people were waiting for the taping of the president's town hall meeting at the airport. NBC26's John Erickson talked with some of them as they waited, and John is live at Austin-Straubel International Airport now. John?
Well, Nina, Air Force One was wheels up from GRB, Austin-Straubel International, about a half an hour ago, back in the air after President Trump spent part of his day here in northeast Wisconsin. Now, that town hall taping was set for about 1:30 this afternoon here at the airport, but we talked with people who were in line waiting to get in hours early, around 10 o'clock this morning, so they were ready to get inside to that town hall. As far as what happened inside, well, we weren't allowed inside, so we can't tell you what we would have seen in there. That town hall is set to air tonight at about 8 on Fox News. We did talk with a Green Bay woman who said she worked hard to find a way inside for herself. You'll also hear here from a protester who was there but didn't have any plans to go inside the town hall. He was across the street.
Trump is a hero almost to me. And for him to be so close and not be here would be really difficult for me to handle.
Certainly all of these people are entitled to their opinion, but my thought is that another 4 years of Trump and Bill Barr and Mitch McConnell is terrifying and would be disastrous for our country.
So we talked at 5 o'clock about what this part of northeast Wisconsin meant to President Trump's election back in 2016. So remember, his afternoon event was in Marinette, Wisconsin. Well, right across the river, you have Menominee County, Michigan. When you look at Menominee County and the counties on either side of it, Delta and Dickinson, the president won those three counties by 13,000 votes approximately in 2016. As far as the state of Michigan as a whole, he won by 11,000 votes. That means, all other counties being equal, if the president would not have won Delta County, Menominee County, Dickinson County in the UP, he would have lost Michigan. As far as Wisconsin and Michigan combined, if a candidate wins them both, they're about 1/10 of the way to the presidency. The president spending more time here in northeast Wisconsin today. We're live at Austin Straubel. John Erickson, NBC 26.
Thank you, John. Protesters gathered outside Austin Straubel Airport and the Marinette Shipyard as President Trump arrived today. Many were voicing their concerns and support for the president. Here's Ryan Curry in Marinette and Rachel Hotmeyer in Brown County.
President Trump arriving in Marinette this afternoon, greeted by supporters of his and also protesters behind me. These people think what the president is doing is nothing more than just a photo op and does not reflect the views of this community, while his supporters think otherwise. President Trump's helicopter arrived just around 3 o'clock this afternoon, and later his motorcade made its way through downtown as he was greeted by both supporters and protesters. Many of his supporters think this contract is going to directly impact this community, but the opposition believes that the president had nothing to do with this. They think his arrival is nothing more than a photo op, and his contract does not benefit Northeast Wisconsin.
There's a more important election coming up in my lifetime than November 3rd of this year. So we need as many Democratic votes as we can get for Joe Biden. We got to change the course of the nation.
And what he's doing for this country, it's amazing. And I'm sick and tired of this Black Lives Matter. All lives matter.
Also happening at this afternoon, protesters and supporters having conflicting feelings of the recent Black Lives Matter movement happening across the United States. Those supporting President Trump were screaming all lives matter, while those opposing him continued their voices heard of the Black Lives Matter movement. Here in Marinette, Ryan Curry, NBC 26.
I'm here outside the Jet Air hangar at Austin Straubel Airport, where President Trump arrived earlier this afternoon to participate in a town hall with Sean Hannity of Fox News. Protesters here are voicing anger toward President Trump against what they say are systemically racist policies and recent coronavirus statements.
I have never been to any place that he has been before where I've seen him live. So I sent an email out to our motorcycle group and I said, hey, we ought to drive up to Green Bay and check it out.
Kind of feels threatening a little bit because we don't want somebody like that here, especially when we realize all the bad things that he's done, just in case he does something else here.
Protests remained peaceful as President Trump drove in his motorcade across the runway instead of the street behind me to get to the hangar. From Ashwaubenon, Rachel Hotmeyer, NBC 26.
Thank you, Rachel. President Trump's visit is being criticized today by former Vice President Joe Biden. His campaign released a statement saying in part, quote, "Today, Donald Trump is in Marinette to take credit for Obama-Biden administration-fueled successes, an attempt to paper over the fact that Wisconsin has been bleeding blue-collar manufacturing jobs over the past few weeks. Instead of offering real relief to working families, he's trying to claim credit for progress in Marinette he did not build," unquote. Hundreds of people got out of their homes today to greet the president in both Green Bay and in Marinette. NBC 26's Eric Crest is in Marinette asking folks the question, do they feel safe congregating for the president's visit in the middle of a pandemic?
It was just a couple of hours ago when President Trump rolled through town here in Marinette. It was the first time a sitting president has ever done so, and folks from both sides of the aisle came out to greet him. Even before the president made it to his destination at a Marinette shipyard, the signs of support and the warm welcomes were sprinkled across town.
It's a time in history we most likely will never see again, and we couldn't ask for a better day to have it.
But it was just in front of the shipyard where the lines became clearly drawn. Not everyone was here to say welcome to Marinette.
First of all, it's a health hazard that he's holding rallies like this, and I think it's inconsiderate.
Many people were wearing face masks and many weren't, but most were prepared to justify why they were compelled to be here.
It's a great experience for the kids to see, Probably never going to be able to see him come to our little town again.
Whether you don't back the president or you do back the president, no matter what, you've got the president of the United States of America in our backyard, and it just doesn't get better than that.
But the concerns of what a group of strangers meeting up like this could mean wasn't lost on parties on either sides of the aisle.
In about 2 weeks, there'll be a surge in the COVID virus in northeastern Wisconsin.
I do have a concern, of course, because all those people are going to bring that possibility home with them.
And while most here are aware of the potential health risks, it is clear that having your voice heard in America's current political climate is outweighing many of those concerns. In Marinette, Eric Crest, NBC 26.
And as you can see, President Trump boarded Air Force One, wrapping up the trip and departing for Washington, D.C. within the hour. We have complete coverage coming up tonight on My News at 9 on WACY and NBC26 News at 10.
A beautiful evening is expected with temperatures slowly falling down into the lower 60s. We could have a few clouds passing through. But the main story as we get into tomorrow, we're tracking some strong and severe storms right now that are currently over western Minnesota. This cold front and associated low pressure will be moving in here. And we are talking about the potential for strong winds, hail, even an isolated tornado. But the weekend shaping up to be pretty nice. I'll have the more details coming up in the full forecast.
Thank you, Gino. More Decision 2020 coverage ahead, including a fight to win Wisconsin. We explain why a victory here is critical to this year's presidential election. Plus, how dentists are evolving to meet health and safety needs amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay with us.
And now your weather with meteorologist Gino Recchia.
Well, June is typically the peak month for when we see the most amount of tornadoes in northeast Wisconsin. And on average, we get about 23 tornadoes in the entire state. So far, we've only had 3, but maybe some things might change tomorrow. All depends on how these storms organize. And we have a strong area of low pressure and a cold front that is moving through to the east. We have some moderate to intense instability off towards the west. But tomorrow, we're going to be talking about more storms. Now, we have an enhanced risk of severe weather for areas to the southeast, the best chance of seeing some of those stronger storms. The rest of us are under a slight risk. What this means is that we could be seeing a nice organized line of strong to severe thunderstorms capable of gusty winds, hail, and maybe even some quick spin-up tornadoes. Here's what one of our computer models is showing as we get into the afternoon. Showers and storms start to fire up towards the west, and then they progress eastward. Now, some of the data is showing that as it gets farther and closer towards northeast Wisconsin, more of a line will start to develop, and that could cause more of that strong wind threat. Like you could see a little Boeing segment right there. That's where you could get some of those strong winds upwards of 60 or higher miles per hour. As you get into later tomorrow night, after 8, 9 o'clock, that's when the storms will subside. So right now, I think the highest risk in any of the severe parameters will be winds followed by hail and a real small chance of seeing a tornado. Of course, lightning with any showers and storms. Temperatures right now are in the upper 70s and lower 80s, a very mild and comfortable day, low humidity values. Tonight will cool down to 60 degrees with southwest winds at 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow will climb up to a high of 82 with strong to severe thunderstorms as we get into the afternoon hours. Winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. So Saturday, 84, mostly sunny. Sunday, 82, mostly sunny once again. We see maybe an isolated shower or storm Monday and Tuesday, highs in the lower to mid 80s, and more sunshine on Wednesday and Thursday.
Thanks, Gino. That is about the picture-perfect weekend for summer. Thanks a lot. Well, still ahead, the rebound. We have a look at new tools for dentists to keep you and employees safe. Plus, Decision 2020, why it's so important for the candidates to win Wisconsin. NBC26 is focused on showing how people are finding solutions to get us all back to work. This includes those with jobs that have a high risk of COVID-19 exposure, such as dentists or dental hygienists. As part of our Rebound reports, we see a new tool some offices now have to help.
COVID-19 has impacted nearly every facet of our lives. Amanda Belcher knows this well. The Franklin dental hygienist had to file for employment starting March 18th.
We were off for 2 months. We're thinking, how is our whole career going to change?
She has been back to work for 3 weeks at Dental Associates with new training.
I'm very, very happy to be back. I know the patients are happy. The ones that are coming in, they're ready to get their teeth cleaned and get back on track.
The company took the time to make it safer by investing not only in personal protective equipment, but devices that can be used during cleanings to stop a patient's saliva from spraying into the air.
They can go pretty far. I would say about 6 feet, and then there's the walls and the counters and tops. And so we're really making sure we're cleaning everything up.
The company shared with us this demo using red dye to show how far saliva can go during a cleaning. So before the pandemic, this is what it looked like.
You can still see there's red that got under and even on his face.
The company's 14 dental offices now have this device that sucks in the particles before they can fly. It's aptly called Mr. Thirsty.
Is that comfortable for you?
You can see the device stop the red dye from going far.
It's not really coming out. So it's working really, really well.
And Dental Associates invested in another option for patients to use. This one is called Ivory Relief. That device also stopped the red dye from spraying.
Dr. Zweig was helping me as an assistant, and he's all still white. So I'm super impressed.
Do you feel safer?
Yes, it's really the same thing. It's more protecting us and them, adding in a couple more precautions and cleaning.
That's good to know because I have a dentist appointment in about a week. Coming up, Decision 2020 coverage, why it's so important to Donald Trump and Joe Biden to win Wisconsin. We break it down next. As Donald Trump visits Wisconsin, it's likely just the beginning of a busy summer of campaigning in our state. So why is Wisconsin so important for the election? Well, let's assume that this is what the map looks like right now. 6 swing states in yellow. Remember, 270 electoral college votes are what you need to win. If the president wins Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina again, and Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania and Michigan, well, then it all comes down to Wisconsin. That's why President Trump is making the state one of his first stops since resuming campaigning. Meanwhile, the Biden campaign, they know the significance of our state as well. The Democratic National Convention is in Milwaukee. Just announced yesterday, the convention will move from the Pfizer Forum to the Wisconsin Center, and there will now be satellite events spread out across the country over 4 nights. Certainly, the campaigns want to win every single state, but they really want to win Wisconsin. And up next for the Democrats, President Trump's presumptive challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden, will also hold an event this week for Wisconsin voters. His wife, Dr. Jill Biden, will be part of a virtual event on Friday. Remember to tune in again at 9 on My News at 9 on WACY. Then join us for NBC26 News at 10 for complete coverage of the president's visit today. One final check of your forecast coming up right after this quick break. You're watching NBC26 News at 6.
Temperatures tonight will be dropping down into the lower 60s, and a few of us might even get into the upper 50s, especially up towards the Northwoods. Winds real light out of the southwest, about 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow we'll climb up into the upper 70s and lower 80s. Now, it's not going to be as sunny as today. Honestly, it could be the complete 180. We're going to be seeing showers and storms, some of which may be on the stronger to severe side, so something certainly to monitor. As for the weekend, not bad at all. Dry weather now looking to shape up with a level of high pressure. Temperatures will be in the mid-80s on Saturday, a little cooler for your Sunday, but looking at the dew points, looking pretty dry right now. However, going into next week, we're going to be seeing the warmer and more humid air returning, Nina.
So we just got to get through a rainy tomorrow and then a beautiful weekend ahead. Thank you, Gino. Thanks for watching NBC26 News at 6. NBC26 Tonight is next. Welcome to NBC26 Tonight. I'm Nina Sperano. Thanks for watching. We have a full rundown tonight, including a little girl who would definitely make you smile. That's in a moment. Here's what's coming up.
Topping the lineup, pushing for change in the face of hate. One man opens up about his journey to help reform members of the KKK. Also, one of the ideas behind police reform is having more mental health experts on calls. We're looking at several programs nationwide already having success. And police use different tactics to control protests. We're taking a look at the non-lethal measures and why a former officer has concerns about the techniques.
Thank you, Asher. We begin with a 6-year-old in Oregon who has a rare but life-threatening heart condition. But right now, that is the furthest thing from her mind because her idol, Sir Elton John, made her dream come true and more. David Ochoa has those details.
And when she said, Elton is calling, I was like,
in shock.
Carly Roman, the 6-year-old girl with Brugada syndrome, has a new friend. The Rocket Man himself, Elton John.
But I couldn't believe it until he actually said, "This is Elton," and might have freaked out for just a second.
After Elton John saw the story, he wanted to make Carly's wish come true.
He said that Carly's story really touched his heart and that he and David really wanted to get her his autograph as soon as possible.
An autograph isn't the only thing she got. She received a whole care package from the music star.
So this note says, "To Carly, thank you for being a fan, loved Elton."
But Elton John wasn't the only one touched by Carly's story.
A lady on Facebook, she told us that she would give us tickets and also backstage passes so we can actually see Elton John in real life.
Her mom says they've had people from as far away as Germany reach out to them. Carly says all she dreams about is seeing Elton John in concert.
I just don't stop thinking about it. I just want to go right now, but the thing is not over.
Now she's preparing to send some gifts Elton John's way.
I painted these both, and this one's for Elton, and this one's for David. And then on the back of Elton's, it's me and Elton, and then a little heart.
She also has a message for him.
I love him, and he makes my life more better.
I'm a big Elton John fan too, so I definitely appreciate her love for him. And she's a great artist as well. As for Carly's condition, her mom says they are waiting to hear back from the hospital about more tests. Switching gears for a moment, let's get a quick check on our weather. We send it over to meteorologist Gino Recchia. Gino?
Yeah, a nice day out there with temperatures into the upper 70s and lower 80s. Just ignore this 59-degree temperature in Green Bay. There's been some issues with the data. So that was actually the temperature at 7 o'clock this morning. Since then, we haven't had any observation data, sadly, from Green Bay. But overall, it's going to be a quiet evening. As we get into tomorrow, that's when things are going to start to change. We are talking about strong and potentially severe thunderstorms developing right now over the west. This is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then as we get into the late afternoon, early evening, we're at about 5, 6 o'clock. That's when some of these thunderstorms could have some hail, gusty winds, and maybe even an isolated tornado threat. Once we get to, I would say, about 8, 9 o'clock, most of this activity will be shifting off over the lake, and we'll start to quiet things out. Right now, it looks like we have an enhanced risk, so that is pretty much a 3 out of 5 scale in the severe weather scale. A slight risk farther to the west. Apparent conditions right now are favorable, the highest for winds, a little bit less for hail, and right now the tornado risk is shaping up to be low. Afterwards, we're turning pretty nice this weekend, and you'll see that 7-day forecast coming up.
While the calls to defund police departments continue, there are some major cities that have already had success in changing police involvement in certain scenarios. That includes programs that limit police interaction and bring in proper reinforcements in situations where mental health is a primary factor.
A police officer, a paramedic, and a social worker in one vehicle and responds to mental health crisis as one unit. So they're not waiting for the social worker to arrive, or they're not waiting for the paramedic to come.
Social worker director Curtis Young is talking about cooperation with Dallas police to bring specialized mental health treatment to 911 emergencies. It's been in place since 2018. It's critical because people with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed during a police encounter, and at least 1 in 4 deadly law enforcement encounters involve an individual with serious mental illness. Our partners at Newsy found since January, the Right Care team has handled more than 6,000 calls. Less than 4% of those calls resulted in an arrest. Also, quality of life citations for things like disorderly conduct and public intoxication have dropped. The program is an alternative to policing, but at the same time, Young says it doesn't work without police.
We are a partnership with the police department, and that's such an integral piece of it, that we're not just social workers out there going house to house and taking 911 calls ourselves. You know, we have been folded into this system and very much welcomed by the police department.
A similar program in Eugene, Oregon has been around for more than 30 years and responds to about 24,000 calls annually. The Cahoots co-response team says it has never had a serious injury or death that their team was responsible for. Ahead in our lineup, promoting understanding in the face of hate. A man who has spent decades helping to change the perspectives of members of the KKK talks about what's needed to help the country move forward. Let's start the news feed. Dozens of Secret Service agents are being quarantined. This comes after President Trump's rally in Tulsa. It's just a precaution. The Secret Service says it won't impact the agency's ability to do its job. More door-to-door political campaigning is set to start this weekend. One group, the Progressive Turnout Project, says it will hit the ground in 17 states. Some Republican groups relaunched efforts weeks ago. A warning from the Justice Department. There are fraudulent flyers and cards that allegedly exempt the holder from face mask ordinances. Many of these cards cite the Americans with Disabilities Act and contain the Department of Justice seal. Authorities say all official information is available on ada.gov. Well, there are difficult conversations centered around race taking place across the country right now. One big question, how can we as a nation address racism at its core? Chris Conti shares his conversation with a man who has spent decades changing the minds of KKK members.
To sit down with Daryl Davis is to truly comprehend the depths of racism in this country.
They want to project fear because, fear is the greatest weapon of all time.
His degree is in jazz music, but this 64-year-old is most well known for the relationships he's forged off the stage.
There are people who dress just like you, just like me.
The last place you would expect to see an African-American man is at a KKK rally. For 3 decades, though, Daryl hasn't just attended rallies, he's been invited to them.
If you have cancer in the bone, you can't rub a topical cream on top, or put a Band-Aid on it. You got to drill down to the bone and put that chemo or radiation in the source, right? So.
And that's what we have to do with racism?
Exactly. Go to the source, which is ignorance. Because it's not inherited, it's a learned behavior.
So how does he do it? He listens, something he says we all need to do more of right now. The more time he invests with KKK members, the more likely they are to see him as human.
If you spend 5 minutes with your worst enemy, who you've never met before until just then, 5 minutes, you will find something in common.
The first ever KKK rally he attended was right here in front of the White House, where our national reckoning about race is on full display. And for Daryl, there's a notable difference right now.
We have never had this many white people join in our cause. This is a major change.
Change for Daryl started here in Belmont, Massachusetts. He was a Cub Scout and marching in a parade when people started throwing rocks at him. Daryl's parents later explained it was because of the color of his skin. Now, 50 years later, he not only attends KKK rallies, he's helped 200 members leave the Klan.
I brought a few garments and flags today.
And when they do it, Daryl often gets their robes. Not being afraid of this cloth, he says, takes away its power.
I did not convert anybody. I didn't even convert one. But I am the impetus for over 200 to convert themselves. I simply plant the seed and give them enough information that they can come to that conclusion. Hey, I might need to rethink what I'm thinking.
At a time when racism has shaken the country to its core, Daryl Davis knows patience is the way forward. I'm Chris Conti reporting.
Rethinking the way we change people's minds. Thank you, Chris. The eyes of the nation were on Northeast Wisconsin today. The president aboard Air Force One landed at Green Bay's Austin Straubel International Airport for a quick town hall meeting. Then President Trump was off to Marinette to speak at Fincantieri Marinette Marine Shipyard, which recently landed a military contract worth billions. In national news, a new Wallet Hub survey finds nearly 80% of people say they'll spend less money this year on the 4th of July. 2/3 think local governments should not use taxpayer dollars for fireworks displays. About 40% plan on shopping over the holiday, but nearly 3/4 say they will not travel. In world news tonight, large crowds gathered at a beach on England's south coast yesterday as temperatures reached 90 degrees. Tuesday, Britain's Prime Minister announced significant easing in the lockdown in England, but it appears his call for maintaining social distancing was ignored by many. You're watching NBC26 tonight. We'll be right back.
For about a month now, tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets to protest and exercise their right to free speech. But free speech has its limits when it comes to your job. Maya Rodriguez spoke to an expert on employment law about what your employer is allowed to do if you protest.
For weeks now, protests have touched every part of America, drawing people out of their homes and into the national debate over police reform and racial inequality. But while free speech is a part of the First Amendment, it doesn't extend as far as you might think. One example, your job.
Those protections are nuanced.
Mark Gaston Pierce is with Georgetown Law's Workers' Rights Institute and a former chairman of the National Labor Relations Board.
People are under the false impression that a private sector employment relationship affords you all the rights that are guaranteed you by the Constitution, but it does not.
In other words, an employer in a state where employment is at will could potentially fire someone for attending or participating in a protest.
Provided, of course, that it's not discriminatory.
There are a few exceptions. Federal and state employees are protected because they work for the government. Unions also have some protections. And 4 states, New York, North Dakota, Colorado, and California, have specific laws protecting employees' free speech rights.
But that's 4 states in a 50-state country.
There are efforts underway in Congress that could expand free speech protections for employees under the PRO Act. It passed the House in February and is now in the Senate.
If labor law is reformed, then that will bring those kind of protections to the public.
But until then, Pierce says an employee's best defense may be found in their employer's own words.
And oftentimes, a lot of that lies in the employee handbook, all of the publications that they make you sign to prove that you read it, and most employees don't read it. They need to know all of that stuff.
Because even in America, free speech doesn't apply everywhere. In Washington, D.C., I'm Maya Rodriguez.
The House is set to vote tomorrow on something it hasn't addressed since 1993, making Washington, D.C. the 51st state. Democrats argue it's important now more than ever. They point to the CARES Act relief funding for coronavirus. D.C. got significantly less, about $500 million, versus states that were guaranteed a minimum of $1.25 billion. Coronavirus deaths in the district have been higher than in more than 20 states.
And so when you're trying to coordinate a national strategy to fight a virus, disenfranchising one part of the mainland territory for political reasons makes no sense.
Most recently, national troops were ordered into the district during protests related to the killing of George Floyd. Federal leaders were able to make that call in part because there is no governor. D.C. Senator Paul Strauss says D.C.'s lack of statehood is also part of systemic racism.
You know, one of the main reasons why Southern leaders wanted the capital of the United States in their territory was so that they could perpetuate the institution of slavery, denying rights to a diverse city, for many years a majority African-American city, and still a predominantly city where the majority of the population is non-white, is really part of the legacy of that racism.
Our political editor Joe St. George explains the opposition to making D.C. a state.
You need Republicans in order to create a 51st state, and there is a concern that Republicans would be handing Democrats 2 more votes in the U.S. Senate by allowing D.C. to become a state.
Again, the House is scheduled to vote tomorrow and has enough support for it to pass. Well, police have been using different tactics nationwide to control protests. We're taking a look at the non-lethal measures being taken and why a former officer has concerns about the techniques. Next. Bruises, vision loss, or the loss of an eye, injuries during protests have drawn more attention to what police call non-lethal tools. An expert tells us there are certain categories: chemical weapons like tear gas, electrical devices like tasers, impact weapons like batons, and kinetic impact munitions, meaning any fired projectiles, including beanbag rounds.
You tend to see grenade launchers being used in crowd control more than anything else. Although you're going to see shotguns simply because they're plentiful and they're accurate.
Charlie Meslow is a former officer and current professor of criminal justice who has conducted research on these weapons. He says what many people have started calling rubber bullets are actually skip-fired munitions. Those are the most concerning to him because they're less predictable. Skip-fired munitions are typically shot out of a grenade launcher with a few rounds inside. They're meant to be bounced off the ground to cut down on some of the sting. Meslow says looking at pictures of injuries, he thinks some are being fired directly at people. There are still thousands of people waiting for their stimulus money. When they try to find out where it is, few answers from the IRS. Tomorrow, what the government says it's doing to fix the problems.
Well, a final look at your forecast. Temperatures climbing down into 60 degrees. Light winds out of the west, about 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow, we're going to a high of 82, but with it, showers and storms. Some of them may be on the strong to severe side. We're looking probably late afternoon into the evening. After that, not bad. 84 on Saturday, mostly sunny. Same thing on Sunday, high of 82. An isolated pop-up shower or storm on Monday and Tuesday. And then we'll turn a little bit drier as some more warm air starts to build in here and also gets a little more humid as well.
Thanks, Gino. As long as we get through Friday without too many severe storms, should be a beautiful weekend to get outside and enjoy it. Well, finally tonight, in the City of Lights, the Eiffel Tower is once again open to visitors after a 3-month closure due to the coronavirus. NBC's Molly Hunter reports from Paris.
They lined up by the hundreds. After 103 days, the fittest, most dedicated among us, all wearing face masks, are scaling the iconic landmark once again. Now, 6 weeks after lockdown ended, Parisians and brave tourists excited.
I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, you dream about this growing up, maybe seeing things like this, and you never imagined that you would actually be here.
The sounds and energy of this normally bustling city creeping back. And even the Lipperts, an American family living here, even they want to get up the Eiffel Tower before the throngs of tourists return.
Since we've been living here, my mom has not been able yet to get to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So that is goal number one.
Life has been great. It's been a lot outdoors, enjoying the sunshine and enjoying all the Paris sights like Versailles, like the Eiffel Tower without the tourists. We've had this very special moment in Paris where it was almost like a secret city.
Now, this city runs on tourism, and like so many places, it is struggling. If the EU ban goes through, preventing American travelers from coming to the EU, that's going to hurt even more. And the Lippert family that we just spoke with, the American family, say watching the U.S. from here in Paris, they feel pretty lucky and they feel a lot safer here in Paris. Molly Hunter, NBC News, Paris.
Thanks, Molly. A lot of us have been itching to get back on vacation. I just want to get back to Door County. Thanks for watching NBC 26.